Hi there. This is Dr. Monica Agarwal. Welcome to another episode of Seeking Voices. Today I get to the privilege to speak to a friend of mine and colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Klodas. Liz is a preventive cardiologist, and she is the founder and chief medical officer of Step One Foods. She's based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Step One Foods is really interesting, and I'm going to let her tell you about it. But briefly, it improves health by creating foods that augment the care and prevention of heart disease. Liz has a long history and lots of experience in cardiology. She graduated from the Mayo Clinic and Hopkins Hospital or Hopkins School of Medicine. She started a preventive cardiology clinic, and she sees patients continuously. She's authored this book that was published by the American College of Cardiology called Slay the Giant: The Power of Prevention in Treating Heart Disease. She's also the founding editor of a very important website for us as cardiologists called CardioSmart. And CardioSmart is a patient education website funded and supported by the American College of Cardiology. She's involved in clinical research and is an active member of the nutrition work group, which is where I get to work with her so often as the nutrition work group chair. I think that Dr. Klodas or Liz would say to you that her most powerful and impressive achievement is that and feels the most rewarding achievement is her work at Step One Foods, helping tens of thousands of patients improve their cholesterol, their cardiovascular health, and just feel better. I think that you're going to really enjoy listening to Liz speak, and I can't wait for you to hear. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. I'm really excited to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Klodas, also known, we call her Liz. Is that okay, Liz, if we do that for
That's
this?
great. Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Liz, it's so good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Great
Um,
to be with you.
yeah, it's so great. So, what's fun is for the audience is that Liz and I are both on the nutrition work group, and we're always trying to think about good ways to impact community engagement and work on education for communities. But I wanted you to meet Liz because she's so fantastic and doing great work. And so I thought we'd start by asking Liz some questions and really just want to say, Liz, tell us about yourself. You're a cardiologist, a preventive cardiologist. How did you get here? What's your path? Tell us about it.
So, when I ended up in cardiology, I actually was interested in everything when I was going through medical school and residency training. But for cardiology, I was just lucked out and had the most amazing mentors, and the care of patients in the cardiac world is very rewarding because you have so much that you can do in invasive cardiology. You can put in stents, open up blockages, things like that, imaging, all very exciting. But I have to tell you that as my career developed, once I graduated, joined a private practice, I just became progressively more interested in delving into the source of the disease and trying to stem it because, it is 80% preventable, right? Yet there's not enough of us to treat the flood of patients that have this condition. And so I became just much more interested in prevention, and then eventually that led me continuing to go backwards and led me to really be interested in nutrition as the really foundational driver of atherosclerosis and coronary disease and heart disease. So
Yeah.
that's how I ended up here through, I think, just a passion around trying to stem the tide.
So let's talk about that because, we went through cardiology training and it is grueling, intensive,
Mhm.
exhausting. But what's the focus in a cardiology training program? When you say that you had to kind of go backwards to prevention, what do you mean by that?
Well, the focus is very much on treatment of established disease, right? And so it's, like I said, stents and bypass surgery and, valve replacements and medications for high blood pressure and high cholesterol. I mean, we spend all our time learning about treating disease. There's actually very little focus on preventing it in, in our training. I think back, like I said, I've really, traveled backwards to nutrition. And as I think about it, my training was, so I trained in Canada. So I grew up in Toronto, and I went to University of Toronto for medical school and pre-med. And that was part of a pre-med kind of curriculum. So it was 6 years, 2 years pre-medical school, then 4 years of medical school, then a year of internship, then 3 years of internal medicine, 4 years of cardiology. I don't know, what is that, 14 years? I look back on that, right?
Forever. We've been in
It's
school
forever.
forever.
It's forever. But I look back on that, and I received 0 hours, not like 0 weeks, 0 months, 0 years, 0 hours training in nutrition.
0 hours in 14
0
years.
hours in 14 years of education. And if you think about the drivers of heart disease, right? High cholesterol, high blood pressure, excess weight, poor diet, high blood sugar, diabetes. I mean, all of these things that are completely modifiable are driven in part or in whole by food. And yet all we do is prescribe drugs, right? Like high cholesterol, here's a pill. High blood pressure, here's 2 pills. And that just felt very, very unsatisfying to me, especially when I realized that, no matter how many drugs I put people on, no matter how many procedures I sent them to, I never really cured anybody. My waiting room never seemed to change, right? Everyone kept looking terrible, feeling awful. On paper, they were awesome. Like again, I trained at Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, top institutions on the planet. I knew exactly what to prescribe, but I wasn't curing anybody.
It's so, when I think back, and when you counted out the years of how many years we've had training, and I've reflected back as well that I also received 0 hours of training in all of my work. And it was only when I exactly had that extra interest in my own sort of desire to make people better. And really, it stems so much of the time, isn't it ironic? And this is what I tell the students when I teach them. You go through medical school and residency, and you're taught all of the treatment, as you pointed out, the stents, the procedures. But all your family wants, who calls you, they're like, well, what should I do so I don't have to take that medicine?
Mm-hmm.
And as that trained, you're like so well trained, yet you can't answer those basic questions, which is, I don't really know how to advise you on which omega-3 to take, or should I take omega-3s? What should I do? And it
Yeah.
really is that whole process of relearning, almost relearning how to prevent disease, which we haven't done. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you have joined that journey.
Yeah. Well, I have yet to meet a patient who asks me to put them on yet one more medication, right? Nobody wants that. Everybody wants to take less. And yeah, I mean, I look back to the day that I don't know what got into me. And I think it was because I was looking at this patient who just wasn't improving despite, me doing everything I'm supposed to do, that I asked them what they ate. And it was astonishing to me. It was astonishing, not only because what they were telling me they were eating. And look, no one tries to make themselves sick or counteract their care by what they eat. That person just didn't know
Yeah.
that they were actively counteracting their care. But then when I started asking more people, not only was this a, kind of a ubiquitous problem, but the biggest thing they were telling me, and this was my biggest shock, was to a patient, they were telling me I was the first physician to even ask.
Yeah.
And this was actually really distressing to me because we're cardiologists, right? Generally we're way down the care stream. People have seen multiple other providers before they see us. I mean, except in the setting of heart attack, and here we are. But I always just assumed that all these things I was treating were resistant to lifestyle. And it was like, wait, what? No one has done this? Like, this was like a huge missing piece of the puzzle. Like I thought I like stumbled into this, completely underutilized, area of care, which it still is, amazingly. I mean, I've been doing, I've been sort of thinking about this for 20 years, and it's still, we're still in infancy of utilizing food for helping people heal themselves.
It's incredible. It is incredible to think about it. So let's tease this out a little bit.
Yeah.
So, what are people eating? Like what's so bad about what we're eating? And is it any
Yeah.
one thing? What would you say? Like the five bad things we're eating, or how would you do it?
I think that it's when I used to not have as much compassion for my patients, to be honest with you. I mean, I think, when I saw someone who was obese, I thought like, oh, come on, can't you just get it together? And I didn't say that, but that was kind of the back of my mind. But as I learned more and really delved into this whole food, universe, what you realize is how stacked this whole environment is against our patients. So there's so many bad things to eat, and it's easy to sort of point to Cheetos and say, well, that's bad, but it's way more, way more subtle and almost oh,
Insidious, isn't it?
insidious. And and these foods that carry these beautiful little heart symbols and things, and people think they're doing the right thing, they're trying, and then you look at the ingredient panel, and you look like, at a high fiber cereal, and you go like, well, fiber's good, but then you look at everything else that's in there, and you go like, wait a second, but the delivery vehicle is broken, or like the number of people who proudly tell me that they eat Cheerios for breakfast. Then you go like, which one? Well, Honey Nut. Okay, well, yeah, it still has the big red heart on it. The heart refers to some I would say flawed research related to the original Cheerios. And oh, by the way, you have to eat 3 bowls to get enough of the you know um, soluble fiber that you need to actually impact lipid levels. Well, okay, what else are you getting in that? Like, that's a lot of calories. So I think it's not so much that there's one thing, it's that the whole system is broken. And the even the health claims that FDA sanctions, they're not, they're well intended, but they're being used as marketing hype.
Yeah.
Right? High fiber, low cholesterol, right? 100 calories. Okay, but what else is in there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is a key point. So, that they're most of the food that we are raising our families on comes in a box.
Hmm.
And when it comes in a box, and many of these are ultra processed foods, right? And over 50% of the American diet is ultra processed foods. So we're opening up these boxes, and some of them, and exactly right, so many of my patients, and they're not wrong, because they're reading the label and it says heart healthy or AHA check mark, or and so they're
Oh,
seeing
don't
these.
get me started.
Right, so they're seeing the check mark and they're thinking, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I should eat. And to your point
Yeah.
about Cheerios, like Cheerios did a really amazing marketing campaign, and so all of a sudden everybody thinks Cheerios are good for you. And not to say that they are bad for you, but they are maybe not as good for
As
you as
good.
other foods, and so we're all trying to
Whereas
put.
people think they are, right? So
Correct,
they're
correct.
maybe not as bad as cornflakes, but it's not the same as eating a bowl of oatmeal,
Right,
right? It's
right.
not
And
even
so
close.
it's almost like we're trying to teach people about the spectrum. Like, this is sort of where we don't want to be, and this is where we'd like to be, and we're all trying to move closer to this side. And I think that as a patient, because I think it's overwhelming, right? The things that they've eaten their whole life, where then we're like, yeah, that's actually wrong and this is right. Wait, hold on. That's so
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's a little bit insensitive, right? And
Yeah.
because people have been proud, these are highly educated people, and it's a little insensitive for us to say, actually, this is wrong, this is right. And I think the way you are teaching people and the way I'm trying to teach people is that it's a spectrum of getting to this side.
Yeah.
And I think that that's key. But I do find that, we all know that the advertising budget for processed foods is like 10 times what the prevention,
Mhm.
education budget is for the CDC, right? It's like this crazy, like we get this much money for education and there's like this much money for advertising for processed foods. And it's like it's like so part of everybody's daily, like people don't know how to cook oatmeal even, in fact, but
Yeah.
they know how to open a box of Cheerios, right? And so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
such a disconnect on sort of that. What do you think about, like, what do you think is one of the biggest problems? Do you think it's processed foods? Do you think it's fiber? How do you want to connect that for us?
Yeah, so I think again, it's not one thing, right? It's
Yeah.
it's a combination of things, but I would say there's an issue with the high availability, low cost, high sort of pervasiveness and advertising, of ultra processed foods. So these are, they're easily the default foods, and look, in their communities where that's all that's available,
Well,
right?
maybe
Food
explain,
deserts
Liz.
and
Maybe
yeah,
explain that. Maybe explain that. I'm sorry to and say,
yeah.
give me some examples of some ultra processed foods. Is that like an apple? You know,
No, no. I mean, basically, an unprocessed food is, the way I think about it is the way nature presents it, right? It's
yeah,
an apple, right? A processed food would be applesauce.
yeah.
You've taken some of the peel off. Okay, an ultra processed foods becomes like an apple juice jelly, where now you've added a bunch of sugar, you've taken a portion of what's in the apple, and now you've reconnoitered it into something completely different.
Yeah, so you've
And
manipulated the food almost in a chemistry lab, right?
yeah,
To kind of have some of this original, but to be a
you've taken
completely
it
different.
apart,
Yeah,
and now you've sort of putting bits and pieces of it back together again, not at all coming back to the whole. And there's something really special about the whole. If you take vitamin C versus a bowl of blueberries, right? If you eat the bowl of blueberries, there's an innumerate number of phytochemicals and cofactors and other little nutrients that come along with the vitamin C in that bowl of blueberries. And our bodies know what to do with that. That signal is like, okay, I get this. I've got vitamin C and it's coming in this package that I'm expecting. Versus if you take the exact same, amount of vitamin C and you eat it with a Twinkie, or you fortify a Twinkie with that same amount, like the body doesn't know what to do with that. Like,
yeah.
this is weird, right? And so the closer we are to the original form of the food, the closer we are to obtaining all the magic that is in those items. And so the farther upstream you can go, the better it is for you, because it's not just the nutrient of interest, it's also the delivery vehicle that is so 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 important. So if I look at, kind of coming back to your original question, like what's important, well, what I saw after I started asking, my patients over and over and over again, like, what are you eating? It became so clear. And again, this goes back 20 years. It became so clear as to the big deficits in people's diets. And now we take these for granted, but it was whole food fiber. People weren't getting, hardly any fiber in their diets. And that's still the case. We're still about 10 grams behind. People weren't getting any healthy fats, those omega 3s. Nobody eats fish, they chia, flax, what? The antioxidants, right? Again, very few people eat the required or recommended numbers of fruits and vegetables. Very hard to get antioxidants from from anything else. And then, plant sterols, because I see a lot of you know high
High
cholesterol,
cholesterol. Yeah.
yeah, patients with high cholesterol. And so, that can really make a difference, and again, comes from a whole plant based, diet. We get plenty of plant sterols from that, but if you don't eat those, you're missing those. And so if you can fill those holes, you can have a huge impact on health. And I think, I want to say one other thing, because it's not we have a bit of the blame as well, not just because we're not educated and we don't preach it, but I think just as a community, I think we also project this notion that, unless you're, perfect, right? A yoga practicing vegan triathlete, right? You might as well forget lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
just not gonna, it's just not gonna amount to much. So you might as well just take the pill. And that's not true, right? The small changes, and for again, I'm like, nutrition, right? I'm so passionate about it. But even tiny changes have such a giant impact, right? One can of soda a day seems like nothing, and there's a lot of people that consume that. One can of soda a day is 30 cases in a year. That's a
Mm,
lot, right? It's a
yeah.
big expense. It's a big volume. Like, walk into a Target or a Walmart or a Costco or whatever. Look at what 30 cases looks like. Okay, bring that home, put it in your kitchen, sit down and say, like, I'm just going to sit here and drink this. You go, like, that's crazy. And yet that is what we do, right? Same thing, like add an apple. Okay, not much if you take one apple a day, for one day. Yeah, okay, kind of lame. But you do it every single day for a year, that's 3 bushels of apples you've added into your body. Like, whoa, that gets interesting, right? That's a lot of fiber, antioxidants, micronutrients. You know, all of a sudden, it's like, wow, that's something big. And if that's in exchange for a cookie, like, that's a health transformation. And you just did one thing. And that's where I see the power of food, right? Like, it's a necessary, it's an essential activity. We have to eat. So why don't we make this into a health building, activity, as opposed to a health destroying one?
Yeah, I mean, so many heavy and important things that you've said that I want to kind of tease out a few of them. First of all, I love that you said that, food should be health building instead of health destroying, right? So, so many of the foods we eat are hurting us and bringing us down, when actually the food you eat could actually build you up, and how cool that is. I also like that you said that, and I think this is really important because there are many people out there that are on social or whatever, wherever you're getting your news, which reality is, I heard a statistic now that a large number of people are getting their information now strictly news from social media. So, which is mind blowing. And there's so many people out on social that have actually very little education in nutrition space. And then there are these other people that are super intense in the sense that they're like, well, as you point out, the vegan triathlete who does yoga every day and sleeps 6 and 10 hours, like, who can do that, right? And
Yeah,
so, and just reminding people that there's so much space in the middle, right? That even small changes are important. And I loved your analogy of the soda, one soda, and then 365 sodas and one apple, and 365 apples, right? And so that even one change a day is a change, and
yeah,
that makes a difference, and that matters.
yeah. It's huge. I often say that we fuel our cars more thoughtfully than we fuel our bodies, right? I
Right.
mean, you pull up and it says, premium unleaded only. What do you put in? Premium unleaded, right? You'd never think of putting in diesel, right? You go, like,
Right.
that's dumb, right? That's going to
Right.
ruin the engine. And yet that is exactly what we do on a daily basis. We don't think of food as a bioactive substance. We think of it in many other contexts, which it has, which can't be forgotten, right? There's pleasure, and there's tradition, and there's culture, and and it's love, and so the food has many things that are attached to it, but it's also bioactive, right? So
Right.
so we have to always keep that in mind.
So great stuff. I had a patient come in the other day, and I'm curious what you'd say to this, but this is something that I think a lot of patients that you're seeing as well will say. And very smart, intelligent man, high, had, was a highly advanced professional. And he said to me, well, he was overweight and he has multiple risk factors. And I was discussing prevention with him. And he said, I'm the guy I like to go into, I meet my friends, they see me and I walk in the room, they give me a beer and they pull out the fried chicken because I'm there. And it's part of our cultural experience, it's part of my connection and community. And how do you talk to that person about, because you brought up how food is cultural,
Mhm.
and there's so much that is ingrained in fried foods, or and people feel that that's part of their culture and their way of connecting. How do you work with a patient, and what do you say, what would you say to that?
Oh, well, that, these are not easy things to just kind of snap your fingers and say, you can just do it this way.
Yeah.
I think about, okay, if you're having, multiple beers during the sitting, maybe think about alternating beer, water, right? You're still, you're still part of the scene. You're still enjoying the company of others, but you've cut your alcohol and, kind of your empty calorie intake in half. Think about what else falls on that plate. Maybe, if it's just fried chicken and that's the only thing you have, then, I mean, maybe you're stuck and it's just a matter of reducing your portion size. But otherwise, think about, you know, um, just changing the proportion of what's on your plate, right? Instead of having, the fried chicken with, veggies, have veggies with the fried chicken. You're
Yeah.
eating the exact same thing. You are participating with everyone. You're not asking people to upend their lives for you, but you're making a slightly better choice. And again, it's this, it's not about being perfect. It's about being better. Health is the end result of a billion little, decisions we make every, through, for throughout every day and, for months on end. And so just being a bit better means your health is a bit better. And the other thing, honestly, if you're the center of attention, you can bring you can bring some attention to you're trying to do a better, job on your own health and inspire others to do the same. So without being preachy, without, kind of knocking people over the head with a sledgehammer, but wow, there's an opportunity. You're someone who's the leader of the pack. Well, lead them to a better place.
Yeah, that's what I talked to him about. So it was interesting because I said, well, part of it is these are your friends for 20 years. Bring these people on your health journey and tell
Yeah.
them that your cardiologist is a pain in the ass and wants you to is worried about your health, and maybe you can have bring them part of that conversation, and that they're
Mhm.
saying that the food is hurting you. And the other
Yeah.
thing I had suggested to them was, to him, is to maybe be part of the solution and sort of bringing in one of the meals, like at these potlucks and these events, like, hey, can I bring
Mhm.
something? And it ends up becoming something that, it becomes a source of conversation, and it's something that, you can eat. So, I love that. And I think that people need to hear that we're not trying to take you away from your culture or your connection, but we're just trying to, provide sort of solutions that are maybe a little bit healthier, try to bring people from your culture and community into the conversation about your health, because this is important. And as you start making changes, you will find that there's so many people around you that are like, you know what, I was actually told to do this too, or I really need to focus on this. And they become part of your health journey and their own health
Yeah.
journey, which is so great. Tell
Yeah,
us,
absolutely.
Liz, like so do you see patients on a regular basis? And
I
tell us,
do. I
yes.
do. Yeah.
Okay. So, and tell us about step one then. Like, how does that work with your life? Again, what is step one? Tell everybody
Yeah.
what step
Yeah.
one foods is.
So, thank you for asking. So, step one is a food company that I started along the way, and honestly, if someone had
In
told
your
me,
free
and
time, in your free
yeah,
time, right?
yeah, yeah, no, if someone had told me in medical school that one day I would do this, I would have like laughed in their face, right? And said, you're crazy." So, I didn't set out to do this, but I got there because, again, go back the 20 years when I had this epiphany, like, oh my God, I'm treating the wrong thing, right? All these people are are eating in a way that's fueling their disease. So I did, what I knew to do. Okay, here's a pamphlet, here's a cookbook, here's a referral to a nutritionist. I will learn about this and I will counsel you, right? Um and the people who did it, who, followed my advice, followed the nutritionist advice, like really embraced it, it was amazing, right? It was like, oh my God, diagnoses were melting away, prescription lists were shrinking, right? Patients were literally becoming non-patients. I was affecting cures for the
Mm.
very first time. It was so exciting. The problem was I can count those people on one hand. I mean, it was astonishing, but it was so rare. It was so rare. And that's because it's hard, right? Like I said, the food environment's broken. It's pushing us to foods that are like we've talked about, fueling the disease. So what that taught me was like, hey, the answer is correct, right? If a condition is caused in part or in whole by food, right? Step one should be change the food, right? So it's just that we don't have all the tools we need to affect that change. So this was sort of the spark behind step one foods, right? Step one, change the food. And this was sort of the idea of using food as medicine before people were really talking about this. I mean, and so it was really okay. Wait, I can get a patient to take a pill twice a day. They don't like it, but they take a pill twice a day. Maybe I can get them to eat something twice a day. That's it. Not asking you to, become a vegan, right? Not asking you to run marathons, right? Just make two small changes. But those two small changes are very deliberate. And again, going back to the missing nutrients in most people's diets, right? Fiber, antioxidants, healthy fats, right? Again, plant sterols for the cardiovascular population, right? What if I jam those two servings of food, with those nutrients, but not from a chemistry lab, right? Because again, we know what the chemistry lab does, right?
Right.
But from real whole food ingredients, right? So walnuts, almonds, chia, flax, oats, dark chocolate, blueberries. I mean, all the things that I hope my patients would be eating, but they don't because it's hard and you have to buy this stuff and it sits in your fridge or in your cupboard and you don't know what to do with it and you don't have time and so it spoils. So okay, what if I make this available to you just in a ready to eat format? So it started out with a sprinkle product, which is kind of like a raw ground granola. Put it on yogurt, right? Add some fruit, there's your breakfast. And then that kind of morphed into basically a whole line of foods where the sprinkle is delivered so in different formats, so in different bars. There's a pancake mix now, a smoothie mix, and an instant oatmeal. So a whole host of different products, all basically ready to eat. Just open the packet and eat. Add water, hot water to the oatmeal. There's your instant oatmeal. A little water to the pancake mix. So minimal prep. Everything is in single serve, so you're getting kind of the dose of those nutrients. And if you do two of these a day, I add in 10 grams of whole food fiber. I fill the gap. I add in at least 2 grams of omega-3 fatty acids. Again, help fill a gap. Add in the antioxidant equivalent of 3 bowls of blueberries. I add in the amount of plant sterols you need to affect cholesterol profiles. And plant sterols are really the only fortification. Everything else comes from whole real ingredients. And so I put it out there and sort of said like, okay, well, let's see what happens. Like I said, it started with sprinkle and kind of morphed, but as people were using this stuff, I was getting like phone calls saying, hey, my cholesterol dropped 38 points. I go like, no, what else did you do? Like, did you really become a vegan? And like, no, like this is all I did. And they kept coming and they kept coming. And on average, our LDL reduction was 38 points. 38 points, which is massive. Now, I know this was a completely biased sample, right? These were people only just kind of like you get a biased sample of statin side effects, right, online. It's only the people that have, an outsized issue that bother to write. Same thing, right? Only the people with an outsized result bother to call. So I knew this was not true across everybody. So, but I thought like, wait, there's a signal here. And so I actually am real proud of this because it took a lot of guts. I staked the reputation of the company. I mean, basically, sort of said like, okay, we're either going to, live or die. We're going to either succeed or we're going to fail spectacularly, and subjected the foods to a randomized control clinical trial. I mean, the same sort of scrutiny you'd put a drug through. And, worked with Mayo, my alma mater, worked with University of Manitoba, kind of the global leaders in nutrition research, and they ran the trial, and it was randomized, crossover, double blind, the whole thing, and it wasn't rigged. So we did there were control foods that were chosen specifically for use type. So if there's a smoothie mix, there was a smoothie mix. If there was a granola, there was a granola, right? But and they were not rigged. So we didn't pick, Cheetos right, to compare this to. It was, our comparison oatmeal was instant Quaker oatmeal. Our comparison, smoothie mix was Ensure. Our so it was things that people would think like they're okay, right? I'm not
Yeah.
hurting myself by buying these foods. Anyway, what we found was that within 30 days, we saw on average a 9% LDL cholesterol reduction with using step 1 compared to control, which actually saw a little bit of an increase. Anyway, 9%. Wow. If I reduce the average LDL cholesterol of the US population by 9%, I think I finally dethroned heart disease as our number one killer, right? I mean, I don't solve it all, but I make a real dent in
Yeah.
public health. But the best part was there were people in this trial that had 30, 20, 30, close to 40% LDL reductions. And this was in 30 days with 2 servings of food, right? And the explicit instruction to change nothing else.
So I think I love this. I want to kind of go through a little bit more because people are going
Yeah.
to want to know this. So you had how many patients in the study?
So there were 54 patients.
Okay, and they had heart disease or risk factors or all
These were
comers.
people with elevated cholesterol levels who were prescribed or advised to go on a statin but refused or
Okay.
couldn't.
So high cholesterol patients that declined being on a statin for whatever
Yep.
reason were given twice a day meal bars or meal kind of.
Yeah, it was basically, here's a box of food, right?
Mhm.
Everything's sort of anonymized, right? It, like one will say chocolate bar, cherry bar, right, or cranberry bar, whatever, fruit bar, and here's another one that, oatmeal, whatever, different packets, and it's just, choose any 2 packets, whatever you like, twice a day, that's it. And so it will be randomized as to who got the intervention foods, which are step 1, or who got the control foods. But let's say you got the step 1 foods first, and let's say you're a pancakeaholic and you just ate pancakes twice a day, for 30 days. Okay, then when you got your control foods, you would get primarily pancakes in that box, so that you were also eating pancakes, and with some additional choices, just in case you couldn't stand the pancakes, but to make sure that you got 2 servings a day. But it was matched for calories, for use, for use purpose, and with randomization in terms of whether you got the intervention foods or the control foods first, and there was a washout period in between.
And there was no restriction on the other foods they ate.
Nope, nope. If your habit is to have a cheeseburger for every lunch, we said keep doing that. We don't want you to upend your life. Do nothing different.
So, Liz, this is a fantastic study that, is so important for people to hear about. And I know this was published a couple
It's
years ago.
published. Yep,
Yeah,
yep, published
yeah.
in the Journal of Nutrition. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for people to see, like, if you change nothing else, you can just add these 2 things and you're making yourself better. And not to say we recommend you not change anything else. We want
Yep.
you to change as much as you can. But the beauty of this shows that, everything is your body is so resilient and
Mhm.
it wants to get better. And
Yes.
even with small amounts of change, boy, like you can make it your body wants to heal, it wants to change, it wants to get better, and with just small changes you can make such impact, and you should be so proud of that study. And we should be seeing and using and utilizing step 1 foods more regularly. Incredible, incredible work, Liz.
Oh, thank you. And there's a reason why it's called step one, to your point, right? It's step one. It's not step one to 100. It's a place to get started. And, this is, I would have to tell you, this is the most rewarding thing I've done professionally, because I have an impact beyond, seeing patients one on one, which I love doing. And I think I'm pretty good at it, but it's only one on one, right? There's only so many people I can physically, counsel and see and help. This allows me to kind of democratize this a little bit further. But so we get emails and phone calls from people literally every single day who are reporting, kind of what happened and thanking us. And the best emails that I'm most proud of is will be someone who says, like, I did this and then I saw my cholesterol improved. So I think I'm going to maybe start going for a walk every day. Right.
Awesome.
And it's again, step one, just get started. And my win would be is that you don't stay on my foods forever, right? Like this is a way to get started, find success where you haven't found success before, and then eventually eat in a way that you don't even need these foods anymore, because you are getting plenty of fiber and antioxidants and healthy fats and plant sterols from the way you're eating, and you don't even need step one.
I love that. I love you explaining that so beautifully too. And I think people need to remember that our goal is to get people on that spectrum. Just to remember again, is that we're trying to get people moving closer to this side, and it takes time. And it's okay to use something, to use a bar or something to help you, especially one that's been shown to have impact. And we're not all trying to be this person from day one. And you got to give your body some grace, and your life some life is hard.
Mhm.
And you got to give yourself grace, and so you do as much as you can, change a little bit every day. And boy, you'll be surprised with little changes how much impact you can make. Liz, you're fantastic. Tell me what you want to do next. Like, you're doing all these things, what are your
Oh,
goals?
well,
I mean, besides changing the world one bar at a time.
um, yeah, I'm not that young anymore. So my goals, I guess,
First of all, you look amazing, so I don't know what you're
oh,
talking about.
it's the very favorable lighting. I don't know. No, so I think what I would love to see is for food to attain the same level of respect in treatment that we give to drugs. We should food should be on an equal footing. In fact, it's superior, right? Think about what eating for improving cholesterol does. Yeah, well, it improves cholesterol, but guess what? If you eat to improve cholesterol, you're also eating to improve blood sugar control and to lose weight and to improve blood pressure. I mean, food is a comprehensive solution to a complex problem, right? Drugs are one hit wonders, right? I can put you on Lipitor, yep, and your LDL is going to drop. But what happened to your blood pressure? What happened to your blood sugar? What happened to your weight? Like nothing, right? So I think that would be the most amazing thing. And one way, if I could like wave a magic wand, is I would have insurance coverage for step one foods. Not because it's good for me. I'm fine. I'm a cardiologist. I like this. I'm
You're
not
doing
doing
fine.
this.
You're not trying to
I'm
do this
doing
for the
fine.
money.
This,
Yeah.
I'm not at all. Like
Right.
my husband would say, like, when are you done with step one? But anyway, because it would usher in, an explosion of innovation. I mean, if there is, healthcare reimbursement for foods like step one, guess what General Mills will want to do next? Make foods that might meet a reimbursement, criterion.
Right.
And same thing with Campbell's, and same thing, whatever, Nestle, right? I mean, it would change our food environment. And I think that is ultimately what's needed. we are, we are so ill as a nation, and we don't have to be. We don't have to be. So that, I mean, if I had one thing, I would try to, I would love to see that happen. As far as, kind of next things for step one, I'm continuing to develop some additional products. So we have actually something really exciting that's coming out in January, we hope, and it's a puff product, so it'll be like kind of a healthy Cheeto, which is so, which kind of proves that you can actually deliver fiber and, from whole real food ingredients in a snack format. So, and here I am. I'm a cardiologist without, self-taught in nutrition and food formulation, and I can come up with this. That tells you Frito-Lay, with their thousands of, food scientists, could have come up with this a long time ago. They just choose not to, right?
Mm.
But anyway, I digress. Then the next thing I want to tackle is I want to tackle diabetes. Honestly, I think we can reverse diabetes. You have to catch it early enough. I mean, if someone is a type 2 diabetic for 20 years, I don't think we're going to be able to reverse that. But if you're early on, if you're pre-diabetic, we should be able to reverse that. We can do that with food. And that's all about weight loss, honestly, and helping people to achieve weight loss in a way that has them eating food. And it's practical, right? It's, kind of using that sort of step one approach, and let's get you to a different eating pathway. So, over time, so that you are not burdened by this disease, because it shouldn't exist.
So many great things, Liz. I think I love I had a colleague who would say to me that he's just going to take his Crestor and eat a steak too. Like he
Oh,
didn't, right? And so I think your point is super important, that our goal is never to, like, if we give you a statin drug, and statins are important. We need
I prescribe them
statins.
all the time. They're
We all
amazing.
prescribe
Yeah.
them. They're incredible medications. I am not afraid of statins, and I believe in them. And we all believe in them. And but the statin, as Liz points out, even though it is pleiotropic, has so many different effects. Like, it decreases inflammation, it stabilizes plaque, it reduces LDL, all very important things. But as you point out, it doesn't fix your sugar. Maybe it makes your sugar a little worse. It doesn't affect, it doesn't make you lose weight. It doesn't make you do all these other things that we need. And yet the foods that you eat overall, and generally that you eat for one illness like heart disease, for diabetes, for high blood pressure, they're all pretty much the same foods, which is more whole foods, unprocessed foods, lean meats, or beans and rice, and beans and lentils, like all the same kind of foods actually impact all of these illnesses. So how cool is it that you could have a kale, a arugula and kale salad, and that's helping you with all three of your illnesses or something, whereas your statin is really only fixing one
One.
problem.
Yeah.
And so remembering that food can have so many more impacts, and that absolutely is such a huge important point. Liz, I want to close, and love this conversation, but I want to close with a fun question. I would like to know, what are three of your favorite food items that you eat in a week?
Okay. Well, there's like the good me, and then there's the less good me.
Okay, we
So
all have a less good me. That's okay.
I'm Polish by my actually I was born in
Historia.
Poland. Yeah.
Ah,
So emigrated when I was 8. But anyway, so 100% Polish, and love potatoes. Oh my gosh, I am just, I don't know. I don't know if it's cultural or, kind of, but in any format, mashed, hash browns, fried, French fries, potato chips. I literally, I can't have some of these things in the house. So that is my guilt. Although potatoes are fine when prepared properly. I love leafy greens. I have a salad bowl that's like this big, and it's full of greens, and that is my go-to dinner. I just even in the winter, I just love it. And
Yeah.
I'll put on different proteins and things, and avocados. I love avocados. I'm also big on beans. I love beans in any format. So, whether it's beans in a chili, or whether it's a hummus, or something. I don't know.
No,
And
those are
I
great.
haven't.
I
Yeah.
love those choices. So, greens, green leafy vegetables, beans. I mean, I could eat beans every single day. I do actually. And then potatoes. And I like that you pointed out that, you're not perfect, and that you will eat other things that maybe aren't the healthiest, but you're doing the best you can. And then I also want to remember that potatoes aren't bad necessarily. It's just how you pointed out how you prepare it, and, the
And
air
the
fry
volumes you eat.
bake in the volumes, and the baking, and not using butters and
Yeah.
oils. There's, sort of healthy ways you can eat potatoes, but eating too many of anything will become a problem for you. And so it's not that you can eat like 400 potatoes, right? And so that's the
Yeah.
other thing. But really good choices. I really like that. I would tell you that when I answer that question, I often say a lot of the same things. My favorite things to eat in a week are kale and arugula. Which are
Mhm.
my two favorite greens, which I eat like constantly and sometimes chew like a horse, when I'm just having a snack. And then I love beans because I eat beans, and specifically lentils, almost every single
Mhm.
day. But something I've been lately into more than I used to is I've been eating a lot of chia seed pudding,
Oh,
because I'm trying to get a lot more of the chia and the fiber and the omega
mhm.
3, and I'm really
And
enjoying
protein.
that,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
protein. So I have been having more chia seed pudding lately. So that's sort of a new thing for me. I mean, I could put 400 other choices because I have so many things I love to eat.
Yeah.
But I just thought it would be fun to sort of end with that. But Liz, you're amazing. You really are. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I want everybody to kind of look at Liz Klodas, look at Step One Foods. If you have somebody in your family or a friend or a colleague or anyone you can think of who could just use a little bit of help with their nutrition and maybe just needs Step One. Take a look at Step One Foods, see if you want to kind of pick up something to help them out. That's a great Christmas present. That's better than any chocolate you're going to give them. It's better than any other things that you might think about to give for Christmas. Why not give them the gift of their future, their life, a little bit of a step forward? So take a look at Step One Foods. Take a look at Dr. Liz Klodas. She's doing amazing work. Really happy to have her on our nutrition work group and just be able to call her my friend and colleague. So it's been a pleasure to
Oh,
have you.
thank you. And if I can make like one plug for the
Yeah.
Christmas thing,
Yeah.
actually, the dark chocolate walnut bars are like, they might as well be a chocolate dessert. So they're, I mean,
Yay.
this is that's the other thing. Like, food should never be punishment, right? This has to taste good, right? So
Yeah.
that was the other big thing that we really focused on when making these products. So, but anyway, thank you so much
Awesome.
for having me. It's a pleasure, and I love working with you on the nutrition work group. Thank you for all
That's
that you
so.
do.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Liz. It's been great. All right, guys, take care, and see you guys next time.